you very much. Good morning. Time schedule is pretty tight this morning, so I will immediately introduce you His Eminence Cardinal Tagle for his intervention about the ongoing relevance of Deus Caritas Est for the Church's service of charity. Please, Your Eminence.
Thank you. Thank you, Martina. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Okay, I will speak in English, so those who need translations, you can please. Dear Eminences, Your Excellencies, dear friends, it is just proper to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the publication of Pope Benedict XVI's Deus Caritas Est, his first encyclical, through an international congress like this. The brochure that we got indicates the direction of the Congress. Perspectives 10 years after the Encyclical. So on the one hand, we are invited to rediscover the wealth of teaching contained in the Encyclical. On the other hand, we are reminded that we are reading it within the concrete realities of 2016, 10 years after. The Encyclical will definitely shed much light on our contemporary situation. But at the same time, the world and ecclesial events these past 10 years could affirm, challenge, and expand the legacy of the Encyclical. The Jubilee of Mercy, I think, will provide ample reflection on the Encyclical. And from this perspective, and from the experience of Caritas Internationalis and other charity service organizations, I would like to reflect on the ongoing relevance of Deus Caritas Est for the Church's service of charity. Obviously, I can dwell on a few select points. Let me start with Caritas Internationalis. You know, I was elected president only last May, so and in absentia. So you could see how innocent I am, or maybe better, ignorant. No. Yeah, but last May, 2015, the General Assembly of the member organizations of Caritas Internationalis approved the following strategic orientations that must guide our service of charity in the coming 4 years. And I'm inviting everyone to listen carefully to the orientations. First, Caritas at the heart of the Church. Uphold the Catholic identity of Caritas as an essential service of the Church to the poor. Second, save lives. Don't destroy lives, save lives. Rebuild communities. Reduce the impact of humanitarian crises by enhancing disaster preparedness and response. Third, promote sustainable, integral human development. Fourth, build global solidarity. Address the causes of extreme poverty through reinforced communication, education, and mobilization, and enhance the visibility of Caritas. The fifth, make the Caritas Confederation more effective. How? Build a stronger confederation based on professional and effective members, guided by the formation of the heart and mobilize more resources. Now, these 5 orientations and the way they were formulated, the way they were crafted, I believe carry the marks of Deus Caritas Est. And at the same time, these orientations open paths that were not explicitly contained in the Encyclical. And I would think that through Caritas Internationalis, an ongoing reflection, existential reflection, would continue on Deus Caritas Est. And hopefully we would rediscover the continuing relevance to the Church's service of charity. I'm just following one of the orientations, enhance the visibility of Caritas. That's why I started with the orientations of Caritas. Now let me go to four points. First, charity, a part of the Church's nature, an indispensable expression of her very being. These are the very words of Pope Benedict in Deus Caritas Est number 25. So the service of charity is not just a welfare activity as far as the Church is concerned. It is a manifestation of the Church's true identity as a community of love. A community of love. So in the Church's charitable organizations, not just Caritas, but all the other organizations, the Church acts as a subject with direct responsibility. So it is not just cooperation. It is the Church acting with full and direct responsibility, doing what corresponds to her nature, her identity, according to number 29 of Deus Caritas Est. Now, these claims of the Encyclical have far-reaching consequences for the parishes, for the small Christian communities, and even for families, which are considered domestic churches, churches in the homes, the dioceses. Now, let me raise or share with you a few things. First, the service of charity, diaconia, according to Pope Benedict, presupposes and is inseparable from the 2 other responsibilities of the Church, namely the proclamation of the Word, the kerygma, marturia, and the celebration of the sacraments, liturgia. They form a tripod, the 3 of them. Together, the threefold responsibility expresses the nature of the Church. Not just 1, not just 2, but the 3 together express the intimate nature of the Church. So I want to raise a point for reflection. In many of our parishes, there are vibrant ministries of the Word. The ministry of sacraments also very much present. But in some parishes, the service of charity is delegated to an office in the chancery. So I begin to ask, what type or experience of church is there on that parish level if you have only 2 ministries? Word, sacrament, and the service of charity is, again, delegated somewhere else. But the interpenetration of the 3 aspects of the Church's nature need to be further explored and lived. For the Holy Father said, they must come together and they are inseparable. For example, I'm sure we have catechists here, priests and bishops and religious and parents. you also teach, you also preach. Preaching is an act of love. It is not just a strategy. And people can sense whether you love the Word of God and whether you are preaching for personal gain or out of love for God and for the community. But how much of preaching is love, an event of love? Sacraments must be celebrated in fidelity to the Word of God and as signs of Jesus' loving presence. One deacon told me that the pastor that he was serving got so angry because the sacristan, the altar server, forgot to bring the water. He pushed the boy as they were celebrating the sacrament of love. Now, ex opere operato, that Mass was valid. But when it comes to the interpenetration of word, sacrament, and love, man, baptisms, every time a child cries, you get irritated. But a baby that does not cry is probably dead. So let the baby cry. Oh, and conduct the baptism with love. Why am I getting angry? I'm sorry. It should be love, love, love. Where am I? I got lost. Conversely, the service of charity must be rooted in and purified by the Word of God and the grace of the sacraments. It must always come together. So the non-connectedness of the three weakens all of them individually and also the church itself. I think this is one of the continuing relevance of this point coming from Deus Caritas Est, which leads me to share with you an observation from Professor Dr. Norbert Mette, and also from Dr. Joachim Reber. I read materials about Deus Caritas Est, and I bumped into these two German authors. Since I'm not familiar about their context, I will quote from them directly regarding this issue. Dr. Mette, he said, recent polls, surveys, have shown that the two dominant German churches' charitable institutions, that is, the Roman Catholic Caritas and the Protestant Diaconie, enjoy greater credit among Germans than the churches themselves. The high regard which outsiders pay institutions like Caritas or Diaconie is not matched by the way in which these institutions are viewed within the church. Those faithful who actively participate in the life of the church would probably prioritize the proclamation of the gospel and church services in the narrow sense. And who appreciate the charitable services? Not those who attend the masses and the liturgy, those who are outside. Now, I got disturbed when I read this. But then Dr. Joachim Reber, commenting on this article of Dr. Mette, said that there is a tendency in many Christian communities with members often belonging to the settled middle class to repress any memory about the dark sides of life, delegating concern for those outside to professional charity organization. The poor, the weak, the shabby, all these are sent away. Along with them, also those who care for these outcasts are more and more separated from the ordinary Christians in their parishes. Many communities have engendered an atmosphere that does not welcome people who are ashamed of their misfortune or their failure. Those who remain in the parishes are the virtuous, the successful, the righteous Christians. It is they who form the core community to which the pastoral efforts of priests, deacons, and pastoral assistants are directed. I read them word for word because I'm not from Germany. So, why are you frowning at me? I'm just quoting. I'm just quoting. But there are quite strong observations. So these two observations describe what could happen when the service of charity is not integrated into and is not the integrating element of the ministries of the word and the sacrament in the parish. The church itself is divided. And in the words of Dr. Reber, you have the church of the righteous, loved by the pastors. And then you have the church of the poor and the outcast, who feel they are not loved. Active parishioners seldom get involved in the service of charity. And those in charitable organizations do not attend Bible or liturgical services. I saw some form of agreement there. Thank you. Thank you. So this is the first point that I want to raise regarding the threefold responsibility being integrated in the church. The second point, the personnel of charitable organizations. According to Deus Caritas S number 31, they are in need of professional training and formation of the heart, an expression used in Caritas International. Professional competence is a fundamental requirement of persons who provide care to those in need, especially because the needs and the situations from which the needs arise are very complex. You really need some sort of knowledge, academic and professional training to be able to understand and to respond. Goodwill is necessary, but to address some very complex issues, goodwill might not be enough. But since we are dealing with human beings who need heartfelt concern, the pastoral workers also need an encounter with God in Jesus that awakens their love and opens their spirits. So here, Pope Benedict combines professional training and the formation of the heart. Again, let me pose two reflections on this. First, professional and technical training should not be ignored in the name of a predominantly humane approach. No. Some people say, well, anyway, we are a humanitarian body, so smiling, hugging, no, that's enough. No. Competence in the area of service is itself a sign that the poor and the needy persons are being given the best that they deserve. Preparing ourselves technically and professionally is a sign of our respect and love for the poor that we will serve. And technical formation does not need to be contrary to the formation of the heart. They don't have to fight each other. Incompetence and the lack of drive or motivation to equip oneself for service actually degrade the people being served, aside from failing to deliver the desired outcome. I once received an invitation. They wanted me to give a talk on how to teach biology. So I called up the office. I said, "Are you really inviting me?" I said, "Yes." I said, I am not a biologist." I said, "I am a bishop." And they said, "That's why we're inviting you. You are a bishop." "Why?" "Then you know everything." I said, "I don't know everything." I said, "If you invite me, if you insist, this is how I will do my my presentation." The kidney. The kidney is part of God's creation. It's part of the mystery of God's love. So do you want that talk to be like that? I mean, there are biologists. Let them give the talk. Oh, yeah. But we also need to ask the question here, how can we prevent people with technical expertise and training from making the service of charity merely functional or clinical? Now, this is a danger which I think the Holy Father wants us to avoid. Competence is good, but make sure your competence does not make you cold. You don't forget your heart. For the people that you're dealing with are not objects. They are human beings. Now, with that question, I move to a second reflection. And this is quite specific. I want to dwell on one aspect of the formation of the heart of those who perform the service of charity. And it is this. I hope our hearts would resist the temptation of going to the poor and the needy from a position of superiority. Instead, the proper stance is that of solidarity, communion. The servant of charity must realize that he or she is as poor as the ones that they are serving. We are all beggars. Even the most intelligent is ultimately a beggar. We realize that not all giving, not all serving is altruistic. When it comes from a self-righteous, superior stance, the giving is an insult to the recipient. The same Dr. Norbert Mette describes a limited concept of charity, or what probably we could call a distorted concept of charity, linked to a form of helping. And this is what he says. Prominent among these distorted or limited concepts are a paternalistic way of caring as offered from the position of a superior societal position vis-a-vis the ones in need, or also merely assisting ways of supporting them through expert knowledge. Both kinds of helping construe the receiver as an object of other person's helping efforts, since he or she cannot help himself or herself. A different approach is taken by a help that is directed towards strengthening the dignity and the capacity of the person for self-help. The helping efforts here are designed in such a way that the receiver is not more or less placed under tutelage, but on the contrary, is enabled to actively engage his own resources towards changing the plight, his plight, and to do so not only individually, but in cooperation with others who are similarly affected. The end of the quote. Now, Dr. Reber makes a similar observation. He said, what should I do? I think we all ask that question. This is a question for those who can freely decide, command the relevant resources, and have access to the relevant options. Biblically speaking, according to Dr. Reber, these are the powerful and the rich. Many Christians, when they hear the biblical accounts of the poor and the sick, automatically respond by, yes, I ought to help. Such Christians place themselves, unwittingly, on the side of the rich and the powerful, and regard the poor as imposing in them an obligation to act. It is always good for a Christian to regard himself or herself as a person who is not only rich and powerful, but also poor and in need of help. In this way, we can receive the gospel in a different way, as a promise and not as an appeal. I guess this is a good reminder. When we help, I'm sure the intention is there. But are we helping as one who thinks of oneself as superior? And the person being helped is way below me. Or do I come as someone who has experienced poverty, and I come first with my presence, sharing their joys, their sorrows. I come as a brother, a sister. A few months ago, with some people of Caritas, we visited the refugee camp in Idomeni, Greece, near the border with the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia. It was, for me, a life-changing experience. But I saw not only the suffering and the misery of the refugees, I saw also my own misery. I saw their dignity, and my dignity was also affirmed. The lady who was in charge of the camp was the vice mayor of Idomeni. I thought it was her job as the vice mayor to organize the camp. But when I asked her, she said, no, this is volunteer work. I said, wow, don't you have enough work as vice mayor? You even add on some more as volunteer here? And she said, my ancestors were refugees. I have refugee DNA. I will never forget the refugees. I am with them. It's not work for her. And it is not helping because I am better off than you. She sees in them the long line of ancestors. And as we were leaving the camp, I saw a sign, ex odos. It's good I was able to study biblical Greek. I read it. Said, Exodus. I said, oh, Exodus. And I sent a text to Michelle Roy here. I said, look, I saw this sign, Exodus. And he said, then God must be there. God must be there. As one of them. The great superior God coming as a poor migrant and refugee. Yeah. I'm sorry, I cry a lot. I got your message. I should end this now. But two more brief points. So the third is the relevance that the Holy Father points to. The third point, Christian charitable activity, independent of parties and ideologies. In number 31. Various political agenda and ideologies have differing views of charity. Number 33 of Deus Caritas S describes how Marxism claimed that those engaging in charitable initiatives are actually serving the unjust system, the status quo. Now, Deus Caritas S wants to free the church's charitable activity from the clutches of partisan strategies and programs. And it is in this same spirit that Pope Benedict states that the Church cannot and must not take upon herself the political battle to bring about the more just possible society, for the Church must not replace the state. Yet, the Church cannot and must not remain on the sidelines in the fight for justice. Her part, according to the Pope, is rational argument and the reawakening of spiritual energies so that justice could prevail. This is in number 28. Again, two simple reflections. First, instead of relying on partisan politics or ideology, the service of charity operates from a heart that sees a neighbor in anyone who is needy. Seeing with the heart. No, this is the term used. Seeing with the heart universalizes the response of love. So you go beyond partisanship. So people of other races, religions, status, and political affiliation would be served simply because they are brothers and sisters that we love. Sometimes politics will choose to serve those who belong to their party affiliation. But the service of charity, according to Jesus, includes our enemies. Now, that's politically incorrect. You will love and serve your enemies, according to Jesus. Divisive politics will now give way to a new politics, the politics of communion and solidarity. So ecumenical and interreligious dialogue happens not only through discussion and agreements, but also through relationships of love, universal love. And so we lament how food, water, shelter, education have been denied by states or political parties to their political foes. We lament how political, ethnic, and religious conflicts have brought about numerous deaths and painful displacement of peoples. Where is your brother? God asks Cain. Does Cain have to know? Am I my brother's keeper? Do we have to know where our brothers and sisters are? Dr. Raber said, yes, you have to know where they are because they depend on your respect and your care. Human responsibility for one another is valid forever and for all. A new politics, communion, solidarity, born out of universal love. Now, if charitable activity is seeing brothers and sisters with the heart and serving them with love, I think we have to see the manifold needs like emotional and spiritual first aid. We have Ambassador Tita De Villa with us. After that typhoon in the Philippines, Haiyan, we discovered that aside from food, shelter, water, the communities needed spiritual and emotional first aid. Accompaniment in trauma and an assuring presence. As Samuel Gregg said, social activism is not sufficient. But when we look at our poor brothers and sisters, we cannot help but see the roots of poverty in injustice, corruption, and greed. Gregory Baum rightly comments that the service of charity often implies a certain political engagement. From the optic of preferential option for the poor, charity is transformed into a great desire for justice and to act justly as a response to the gospel. Again, not because of any political affiliation, but as a demand of the gospel. According to Enrique Colom, all sectors of society, even the church, and those involved in charity initiatives are called by love to change or to review and to change our lifestyles, our models of production and consumption, and the structures of power that govern society in order to reorient them according to a fair understanding of the common good. We need to add the fundamental insights of Laudato Si on ecological justice that plays a key role in addressing the needs of our poor brothers and sisters. Our service of love in the context of ecological and intergenerational justice. And so it's providential that Caritas Internationalis has Blessed Mother Teresa of Calcutta and Blessed Archbishop Oscar Romero as joint patrons, bringing together charity and justice. How many more minutes do I have? 2 minutes? Can I just close now? Will there be questions? Maybe no more. Let me go to my last point. The church's charitable organizations, credible witnesses to Christ. Here. Witnessing to Christ, according to Pope Benedict. Love is not practiced as a way of achieving other ends, especially proselytism, or imposing, even in subtle ways, the church's faith on another. Using charitable acts to achieve one's ends is manipulation, not charity. This does not mean, however, that God should be left aside. So here enters the basic insight of Pope Benedict. The purity of love that a Christian proposes in the service of charity speaks of God by way of witnessing. You speak of God by witnessing. But how does one become a witness to the God who is love? First, by being aware of how God has loved me. The first letter of St. John gives us a clue. St. John says, what was from the beginning, what we have heard, seen with our eyes, contemplated, and touched with our hands, that is the word of life, we proclaim to you, so that you may have communion with us. Who can proclaim the word of life, the word of love? Those who have seen, touched, and contemplated that love. We can witness to God only from the conviction of our own experience. I have been loved. And from that conviction, I can show, even without words, that love is real. It is not just for image, but it is coming from my experience of love. But witnessing to love requires constant conversion to love. Gerard Mannion observed that as we correctly focus on the needs of other people in the world, witnessing to God's love to them, we should also look at the inner life of the church. For if the inner life of the church is not filled with love, how could we witness to the world about love? The Trinitarian love should also be experienced and manifested in the relations within the church that claims to be the sacrament, the witness of God's love. So Mannion says, if practical reason can become ethically blind, as Pope Benedict suggests, by the dazzling effect of power and special interests on politics, then the application of practical reason within the church and church-linked institutions, organizations, and agencies can equally fall prey to such ethical blindness. Pastors and their vicars, do you live in love? Priests and bishops, oh, do we love one another? Husbands and wives, families, do we love? If there's no love in the inner church, how could we witness to that love? No? But this requires ongoing conversion. If we want to infuse society with love, then charity must also animate the lives and actions within the church and its institutions. Charity begins at home, not for its own consumption, but for the witness that we want to give to the world. When I was younger, there was a famous song, "They will know we are Christians by our love." You don't need to say a word. They will see that we are Christians by our love. That is not proselytism, but witnessing. 2 days before Christmas, I celebrated Mass for street kids under the care of a foundation. Tulay ng Kabataan, the Bridge for the Youth, the shelter visited by Pope Francis. The reading for that day was the birth of John the Baptist and the question of peoples, what will this child be? So in my homily, I told them, God wants you to become someone. How about you? What do you want to become? So I invited some of them to share. And before I know it, all of them were already in the altar area, wanted to share. Many wanted to become doctors. Some wanted to become pilots. Some singers. Oh, many Filipino singers. And then I thought I have to put a stop to the long line. Otherwise, up to now we will be celebrating Mass. So I saw a girl wearing a pink dress. I said, okay, she will be the last. And then you can share your dreams later on. When this girl approached me, I realized she was a child with special needs. She had Down syndrome. So I repeated the question to her. What would you want to become? With a big, big innocent smile, she said, I want love. I desire love. There was silence in the church. And after that, this great applause from the street kids. And I said, I could not have ended the homily in a better way. I want love. Deus Caritas Est has an enduring relevance for the Church's service of charity, because the poor we will always have with us, and because God is love, eternal love, incarnate love, merciful love, universal love. Thank you for your patience. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cardinal Tagle, for this heartfelt and challenging description of Caritas you gave us. Talking about challenges, the modern secularized world poses plenty of challenges to the service of charity. I think, for example, of the way the secularized society tends to put aside, away from the public sphere, God and religion, and to see the church as simply an NGO. So the first challenge is, how do we overcome the risk of being seen just like another philanthropic agency? Second challenge linked to this, as it was said yesterday, if the greatest work of charity is evangelization, how do we avoid this evangelization being perceived as proselytizing, and therefore it would be refused by this secularized world? Third thing, paraphrasing Pope Benedict, I would say, who said that openness to life is at the center of true development. Perhaps we can say that openness to life is at the center of true charity as well. Unfortunately, what we witness these days are that plenty of non-governmental organizations, under the guise of providing charity work, do promote abortion, birth control, and even encourage euthanasia in poor countries. How does this spoil the notion of charity, and what can we do to contain this tendency?
That is another Congress, no? The three questions there. Yes. The first is about the perception of the church. And this is the perception from the outside, saying that the church, especially in its charitable organizations, that the church is just one philanthropic organization. Well, how far can we control the perception of an outsider? Maybe we can control it just to a limited extent. But what can we do, at least for us internally, is to ask the question, if that is their perception, what are we doing now that has given them that perception? Sometimes we just blame them for thinking of us this way. But maybe the perception also came from us. So it is good for us to be able to do some soul searching. Are we ready to present the totality of being church, where our motivations, even our structures, our policies are really rooted in God's Word? Like, for example, nowadays with the management standards, transparency, accountability, they are terms used by the secular world, and they are good. But what I'm trying to do now is to find in the Bible the equivalent, so that I can tell them, look, these are not your inventions. They are deeply rooted in our religious tradition. Honesty, transparency, all of that. No, and so I don't think we should be ashamed to show the religious, the biblical roots of our engagement. No? Secondly, proselytizing. Yes, yes. As already mentioned yesterday, I think this dictum has been affirmed by Pope Benedict and also recently by Pope Francis. Truth, the Christian truth, is beautiful, and beautiful things, objects attract. And so proselytism is in a way imposing. But if it is good news, if it is beautiful news, then in itself it will attract people, and with freedom. You don't need to impose it. Now again, the question is, are we making the good news radiate as good news? I am often invited to homiletic seminars. I say the good news is already good, but how come when we preach on it, it suddenly becomes bad news? And then we force it. This is good news, good news. And then it's proselytism. Let it be good in our hands and in our lips. Then it will attract. You don't need to force people. And then they will ask, "Who are you?" During the meeting, the latest meeting of some groups in Idomeni, this long line of refugees. I gave a bag of food and water and one boy asked me, "Are you a Muslim?" And I said, no. He took from me the bag, but as he was leaving, his eyes were on me, locked, onto my eyes. It's a mysterious look, but filled with peace and calm. I could just imagine, maybe the boy was asking, what are these non-Muslims doing here? What are they? Why are they giving us food? And that silence, a sort of calmed the both of us, And the third is la vecchiaia è già arrivata.
The risk of ideological colonization, because if all those people who are called to do charity, in fact, they ask for something.
Yes. I know, especially in the area of life and family. During the visit of Pope Francis in the Philippines, while addressing the families, he said, "Beware of ideological colonization." He said that the families are being affected, by ideologies that come in the form of help or aid. Now, this is a very complex issue requiring of us vigilance in getting to know the groups or the what do you call this, the foundations or the agencies that are what do you call this, extending help or who want to partner with us. Partnership is not bad, but we must be clear that partnership respects the identities and the values of the diverse groups. But one other thing that still is puzzling me, sometimes I don't know whether this is still evangelical or already an influence, uncritical influence from outside. Sometimes we are made to feel that mission and charity depend so much on money. And if there is no funding, nothing moves. Is mission really dependent on funding? So even without funding, we can love, we can serve, you know. But the way things are going right now, even the service of charity has become like you need to have this amount, and if you cannot raise it, then drop the program. Sometimes I know I'm oversimplifying, no, but I think and so we become too dependent on bodies that can offer money, and sometimes because we think mission is dependent on money, we say okay, but maybe it's time to have mission. No? Yes, money is needed, but it is not the determining factor in mission.
Thank you very much. Questions from the public? E poi là. If you can introduce yourself, please.
Yeah. My name is Heinz Hödel. I'm the president of CICE. This is a World Alliance for Catholic Development Agencies, and I'm working with the Catholic Bishops' Conference in Vienna, Austria. Thank you, Your Eminence. I liked your presentation very much. And you mentioned Laudato Si. Yesterday, there were quite a lot of questions and opinions about the causes of poverty. Why are people poor? Why are there so much poverty in the world? How do you see the connecting issues of Deus Caritas Est and Laudato Si? Where are these links? How shall we advocate for justice, also for a just economy and the paradigm of economic growth, which Laudato Si is mentioning? The need of systemic change. How do you see this? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I hope I will be able to do justice to your questions. There is a lot of coming together of Deus Caritas Est and Laudato Si, and especially the Year of Mercy. I don't know whether, I'm not aware of any study yet. I've not gotten hold of any study along that line, but I hope someone or some groups could bring the two together, you know, and see where they converge, where they support one another, and also the newness that, for example, new insights that Laudato Si could provide and could turn to Deus Caritas Est for some directions. Now, to answer your question, the way I would approach it is this. While justice and charity are often distinguished, but in reality, they are connected. Where there is injustice, there is lack of charity. If you love, you will not think of being unjust to anyone. But when we talk about systemic injustice, then this is, wow, you have a system that blocks the circulation of love. And that is alarming if the blockage of love becomes structural, for it will rule the lives of individuals. But instead of just being overwhelmed into analysis and paralysis, as they said, it is good to also remember that systems, cultures, institutions, structures are creations of human beings. While systems shape human beings also create systems. And here, I think Deus Caritas Est, with a call to love, experience of love, and acting out of love to witness to God, can blend very well with the systemic injustice, even on the level of ecology, that Laudato Si is talking about. Because the degradation of the environment, to a large extent, is also due to economic choices and policies that are insensitive to peoples. And so we need to, I think, address the systemic issues by also going to persons, business people, and those who make decisions. No? For example, in the Philippines, 2015 for me was a banner year. There were so many organizations of business groups. No, the financial, the Institute of Corporate Directors, the financial executives, all of these clubs invited bishops and myself, no, to explain to them the challenge of Laudato Si and the social teachings of the church, the call to promote the common good. You know, and if you handle them as small groups, individually, you can appeal to their good sense, you know, and I'm sure with them, you know, they could somehow help in the changes in policies and the systems, working on the personal level and also on the systemic level, cultural level. In fact, the Institute of Corporate Directors asked me to reflect with them, bringing God back into the boardroom. So I asked them, why? Did God leave your board meetings? Why did he leave? Why are you asking me how to bring him back here? But it was an expression of a desire. And they admitted it. So they said, we are all baptized here, but sometimes we feel we are technocrats. How do we awaken in us the sense of God? Wow! So we grab those opportunities, you know. Yeah.
Next question, please.
Soy Alicia Dune de la Asociación Internacional de Caridades, AIC, Voluntariado Vicentino. Me gustaría saber cómo vería la colaboración entre en las parroquias Caritas con otras organizaciones como nosotros, que también nos dedicamos a la caridad y que nos gustaría trabajar mano a mano y sin perder nuestra esencia y decir los objetivos tan claros y tan bellos como nos ha explicado. Gracias.
¿Hay problemas? Muchos.
No, tiene que
¿No? Ya, okay. Tenemos muy buenos ejemplos, o sea, de lo que sí. Por ejemplo, en Alemania es bello cómo trabajamos unidos con Caritas. Hay ejemplos en Latinoamérica en que a veces algunos sacerdotes desearían que nuestros grupos se integraran y dejáramos nuestro origen para trabajar de manera conjunta. Y bueno, es un poco de fricciones en ese sentido, entonces me gustaría… ¿Cuál es la? Sí, hay problemas, sí, algunos. Hay buenos ejemplos y hay problemas, entonces me gustaría saber.
I will answer in English, yes, because there will be more problems if you. Yeah. Based on my experience, I think the question could be addressed on different levels. One is the relational level. I suggest that the representatives or leaders of the different groups become friends with the pastors and the other pastoral workers. Human interaction and friendships could help a lot, you know. Secondly, there are different ways of bringing the different agencies together. Some operate on particular concerns, like, for example, if it is a concern regarding housing for the poor, then maybe organizations known for such a concern can come together for this, and with a clear coordination. So it's project or program based. I know some parishes or dioceses, they have an umbrella ministry where all the organizations and individuals could work together under one umbrella. They even take turns in leadership so that everyone is recognized. But that works only if the people really know each other, they trust each other, and they work openly without hiding each other's agenda from the others. Now, and finally, I don't know whether this will help. The reason why I ask whether there are problems is, sometimes what we are facing are not problems, but dilemmas. Problems have solutions. Dilemmas don't have. Yes. And sometimes we get frustrated. We say, we have tried everything, but nothing has solved the problem. Well, it is not a problem. It is a dilemma. So that means it will remain. And the best way is to navigate, to navigate using the experiences of people who have somehow gone through those dilemmas and have survived, and not just a recipe for a problem. Now, every parish priest is not a problem, but a dilemma. Okay. Every bishop is not a problem, but a dilemma. And so it will remain a mystery.
Deus,